All right, good evening. How's everybody? All right, we're going to get started. Again, before we get started, I'm going to ask everybody that's be nice. How about we be nice? All right. I'm required to read this. The electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings in the town of Andover are hereby notified that the Andover Elementary School budget meeting of the town of Andover will be held at the Andover Elementary School in the gymnasium Tuesday, June 2nd at 7 p.m. for the following purposes. Number 1, to choose a moderator for said meeting. 2, for review and discussion only, but no action taken upon the budget of Andover Elementary School for the fiscal year July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027, as prepared by the Board of Finance, and voting will be deferred to the subsequent budget referendum at the Andover Town Community Room. I believe that date is June 16th. Is that correct?
Yes, actually,
June 16th. Okay. So the first order of business is to choose a moderator for said meeting. Do we have any nominations?
I'll second.
We have a nomination for Wally Martin from Jerry Cornet and a second from Scott Soya. Are we all set for that? Any other nominations?
I'm just going to come around to the mic to help people make sure they're speaking right into it.
There's only one mic.
Oh.
That's okay. Any other nominations? All right, hearing none, Wally is said moderator.
Okay, couple of housekeeping things. This is the only mic that's functional tonight. So anyone that wants to come up and speak, you're gonna have to come up here, and it'll be used by the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and whoever wants to speak. At this time, I'll turn it over to the Chair of the Board of Finance to issue his presentation.
Yeah, thanks for Lance. All right, everybody. Since this is the third time we're going through this, I pared this down somewhat. I'm focusing on the changes. So this is a recap. This first page is everything that's happened up until the last referendum. So we've been through this already. As you can see, there's been a lot. We originally failed at referendum. Board of Finance made a $50,000 cut to AES. That was also rejected in referendum. So here we are. At our last meeting, the day after the last referendum, we voted to decrease the AES budget increase request to 6%, down from the 9.82 I think we were at. It's about a $175,000 cut. That puts their budget request at $4,839,389.72. RAM's operational budget also failed. Their capital task, but their operational, which is much larger, failed. They met last night. My understanding is that they made a reduction to their operational budget of about $254,000. I've got info from their finance office as to our levy. The resulting decrease for us is $32,187. If you put those two together, that brings the total expenditure number. If you guys picked up the handout, it's reduced by that $32,000. We already had baked in the Board of Finance change, but of course, since what Rand did happened last night, there wasn't time. So that's why you might see a mismatch. Anyway, we're at $13,306,225 for our total expenditures, 3.15%. Now we have this year, as we've discussed in prior past meetings, and I can go through it again if people have specific questions, if you want to hear, if you're curious. But we have some offsets, some additional revenue, some one-shot deal kind of things. The RAM offset for our levy because they had too much money built up, the state aid, supplemental, etc. The result of this means is that the amount that we need to raise by taxation is just over $10 million, $10,099,572, which is just shy of a 1% increase. Due to increases in the grand list, what this works out to for the mill rate is that we're basically flat. We were 3.159 last year. I'm getting 3.158 as things stand today. This is just a snapshot of where we are in terms of the various expenditures. As you know, the town budget passed, so that's baked in. And what remains is RAM in the Andover BOE. Those are the numbers as up to date as I can get them. So this is just how we calculate the mill rate. As you can see on here, the taxable grand list, if you look at that number, it's up a bit this year, presumably some new construction and such like. And that is why you can have the amount raised by taxation go up 1%, but have the mill rate flat. So your individual tax would be flat if your assessment hasn't changed. We don't have a reval till next year. So this is just I redid this as my little 5-year look back chart of what the amount to be raised by taxation, which again isn't necessarily exactly your taxation level because it changes from the grand list. But this would have us, if we were to pass this combined budget now, we would be at 7.3% over 6 years. That's where we stand tonight. And that's it. I wanted to pare this down and keep it short and sweet. If you want me to go back and recap something that you're curious about from past meetings, I'm happy to do that in question and answer time. But I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to leave, let's see, what's the best? We'll leave it there. And then what I'd like to do, since my presentation was so short, is I know that the remaining question is about the PA's budget. We have the Andover BOE here, and Caitlin, their chair, asked if she could have some time to address that budget. So what I'd really like to do is bring Caitlin up, and then we do the question and answer after that.
He said he doesn't have the software.
I have this discount ability because of the hand rotation button. Everything up, I'm sorry.
Okay, so there should be hard copies of our budget that are outside there by the door. Does anyone need one that didn't get one on their way in? So we've been here a couple times already at town meeting. We definitely can answer whatever questions that you guys may have specific to our budget, since it's the only thing that has yet to pass, right? So it's what we'll be voting on in addition to RAM. But really just wanted to say, there will have to be cuts with the 6% increase to address any parents that are in the room, like real substantial cuts for us to get to that number. So if you're gonna ask if it's gonna affect students directly, 100% it will. We don't have a way around that. So if anyone has specific questions about line items within the budget.
Can you give more information about how it will affect these?
So I can't. The superintendent might be able to. We haven't met as a board yet, and we wouldn't make those decisions until after this budget passes, if it passes.
Okay.
But I think the way you're supposed to do this is to say your name and then ask the questions. Yeah?
Oh, sure. I say your name.
Hi, Ashley Johnson, Lake Road, 191. I was just wondering if you could give us more information about how this will affect students with the budget changes, because, I mean, honestly, I kind of like the 6%. But, yeah, I would like to know, how is this going to affect our students? How is this going to affect us moving forward? And what can we as a community do to help make up the difference through volunteer or anything else? Yeah.
Well, as the chairperson said, this will be a decision that the board will have to make. There will be a list of proposed ideas for the full board at the board meeting this week. I'm working with the principal, the special ed director, the teachers union, for us to look and figure out what they would be. What's on the table so far, again, in no particular order, because there's a lot of things that we're going to have to look at. On the table is the loss of 2 paraeducators. I've already spoken with that union, that is on the table. The not hiring of a new teacher for 6th grade and having to reconfigure existing staff, because there does need to be attention to those 6th graders. On the table is the loss of the library. On the table is the loss of Spanish, we've already spoken. On the table is the loss of the addition of art back down to potentially 2 to 3 days. On the table is the collapsing of one of the grades in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. It would be 2nd or 3rd. We have to look at not only the number of students, but the needs. One of those 3 grades, I won't tell you which one at this point, but one of those 3 grades has a student population, 50% of students with particular programs. When I say individualized programs, I mean some that are special education with an IEP of 504, some that are talented and gifted, some that are ELL. All of those are individualized needs for those particular students. So we have to evaluate which grades we would be looking at. But beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's loss of staff. Just not sure where that loss of staff will be. That's not a maybe at this point, that's a definite. And I know that sometimes people are like, well, they're just saying that. No, that's a definite, because that's what was budgeted into the budget, and something has to give. And as we know, we can't take from the medical benefits, we can't take from, a lot of other existing staff. So those are all the things that are on the table. Again, I'll present them officially on Wednesday next week to the board. But there aren't any decisions that will be able to be made at this point until the number comes through and the board has to weigh all of the factors surrounding that.
Anyone else with a question?
Louise Goodwin, 91 Lakeside. I wanted to read a letter, an email that I received from Linda Derrick in regards to I can open the petition. She sent to us actually a copy of the petition, about 87 people. It says, please find the petition that I spoke to at the 527 BOF meeting. This is a group of thoughtful, informed, long-time Andover community folks, voters. The intention of the petition was to be helpful in guiding the process towards an optimal outcome. People were dedicated to sign and contribute a voice, and there were some who felt some concern of retribution from the school board and requested that emails, phone numbers be deleted. I have respected that concern here. We collectively subtitled the petition, Vote Yes, Just for Less. All support the school in the greater context of the town financial well-being. Thank you, each of you, for your efforts on our behalf, Linda. I just want to make sure that was recognized. Thank you.
Other questions? Don?
Donald Denley, Lakeside Drive. First of all, we all support education. We have a great school, we have good enrollment, we have a terrific, thoughtful superintendent, but obviously 11% was too much, and 9.82% is still too much. So we have reasonable class sizes, we have limited means, but at the same time, this has been a difficult economy for a lot of people, and it's time to tighten the belt a little bit. So the Board of Finance presented a 7.5% increase suggestion initially. Is that correct? No?
We recommend.
Recommended 7.5. Okay. So, which I think that would be reasonable. So I'm just like to know where the 6% came from. And we certainly know that the Board of Education will do whatever they can to minimize student activities and student participation as far as the budget decreases. But I'm just like to know where you guys got that number from.
All right, I'll address that, and maybe other members of the board have their thoughts, but we had our board of finance meeting the night after the referendum. At that meeting, there were various proposals floated. I believe the low end was 3.5. There was a lot of discussion and debate, and ultimately we had 4 votes for 6. It's by its nature arbitrary. It's an attempt to get it passed, and at the same time try to preserve, functional school. So, we went at it for 2 hours, and that's when we ended up basically because we had competing ideas. We talked about 3.5, we talked about 5, we talked about 5.5, we talked about 7.5, and we ended up at 6. Best I got for you. You have any further?
So we know we have reasonable class sizes. We have I've said this at previous meetings, that our superintendent kept the school open during the pandemic. Teachers worked hard. Our teachers they're well paid, but they don't just work 180 days. So I would have been comfortable 7.5, but 6%, I think it's time to pass this budget and let them go to work to trim it down and carry on. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Put your hand up. Oh, Linda, come on. Please. They're all raising their hand and then pointing.
Hi, I'm Linda Fish, Townsend Road. Just a simple question. I was looking at the educational budget, and there were 2 things I couldn't find anywhere on the budget sheet. One was legal fees. Does the school have legal fees included in there, and where are they, and how much are they? And the other one is Andover, Hebron, Marlboro Youth Services. I couldn't find a line item with that, and I was wondering what that sum is. That's it. Thank you.
So AHM is in the town budget, it's not in the school budget. So that's why you can't find AHM. And as far as legal fees, we definitely have legal fees. We've had to do contracts for the bathroom capital project this year. We've had FOI requests. There's been a numerous amount of things for legal fees. Just trying to find you the exact line item number for it. It's line 2310. And what'd you say? And sorry. So it's under the section that has professional services on page 2. So it's 340, and then it's the third one down that says other professional services board.
Anyone else?
All right, my name is Betty Parker, and I'm at 151 Lakeside. So I have two issues and then one question. The first issue is what is the real tuition for AES? We're being told that it's about $19,200 per student, but that might be a few years old. Using the most recent enrollment figures from the May Board of Ed meeting and advancing the grades to reflect the next school year, it looks like we're going to have about 185 students K through 6. At 19 per year, that should give us about a $3.5 million budget. At $22,000 a year, that would give us a $4 million budget. So to get a $4.8 million budget, our per pupil spending is going to be about $26,150. So we keep being told that we're so much less than everybody else, but we're really not. So what does it cost for the per student for preschool? At 65 students and a budget of $436,000, the cost per student is about $7,000. And when you add the employee benefits for the preschool that are within the AES budget, the cost is closer to $10,000 per student. So why is our tuition only $6,000? If you increase the tuition to about $7,500 per student, using only 2/3 of those students, because not all of them are paying full tuition, that would add about $60,000. While it would not completely pay for the cost of the preschool teacher benefits, it sure would help. So my second point is the Connecticut General State Statute, Section 9-369B, prohibits the expenditure of public funds to influence voters by a superintendent on a pending referendum. The three-part test includes, was the communication made while the referendum was pending? Does the communication advocate? And was the communication made with public funds? Section 9-369B is not limited to traditional out-of-pocket expenditures like newspaper advertisements or printed flyers. The statute also prohibits in-kind expenditures of public resources. An in-kind expenditure occurs whenever district resources, whether tangible or intangible, are used to support advocacy. Examples of this would include use of district supplies and equipment, use of district personnel during work hours, preferred use of district space or facilities, and the use of district's website, Facebook pages, parent email accounts, and other electronic communication platforms. I believe that the online YouTube communication that our superintendent of schools put out to the parents on April 29th is in violation of this statute, and any use of school resources for this purpose should be addressed. My last one is a question. When it's agreed that the solar panels would be added to the roof of AES, the town administrators stated in writing that it should decrease the electric bills by about a half. In the current year budget, we have $80,000 almost in electric costs. And in the proposed budget, that line has not decreased. It looks like there's at least $40,000 of padding in this budget line. And I want to know, why have we not decreased that?
So specifically in regards to solar, because we have talked about this a few times, the solar panels were recently activated, about a month or a month and a half ago. It will take 1 full year before they start to actually earn us money that's reflected in our costs. So you'll see that line item actually decrease in another year. Myself personally having solar on my house, that's exactly how it worked for us as well. So that will start to see reflected after another year.
We also have solar, and they get inside almost immediately.
Yes, but so if you're doing it privately on your home and you have that with Eversource, that's different than being a leased program through a contractor. It's affiliated with Eversource, but we don't own those panels. We didn't pay anything for them. It's a leased agreement. So the way that we get that money back in energy savings works a little bit different than as a private homeowner.
I just wanted to say one thing about the per pupil costs, because this is something that I think can be confusing to residents, and I think it's helpful to just talk about that a little bit. There are different ways of calculating. The state has a website where they calculate the figure, but they do things under the hood that are frankly, I think, confusing to a layperson. They do things like pulling out special education costs and not counting them. So that's why you'll get a figure, on one figure you'll look it up, it'll say 19,000 or something like that. Okay. When you do the basic math, about 190 kids in the school, this is the budget, you get to about 26. And that's the real total cost, right? Not that kind of bespoke state way of calculating. Now, we've bounced around between about 25, 26K per student per year for some time. I think we bottomed out around 24 and a half. So it's not like, 26 is wildly different than in past years. The other thing you have to keep in mind is, we're always talking about this in nominal dollars. If you go back 5 years and you see that we pay $25,000 a kid, and we're looking at paying $26,000 a kid this year, just keep in mind that's a nominal figure, that's not adjusting for inflation. So I just want to throw that out there, that there are at least 2 or 3 different ways of calculating per pupil costs, and people get confused by this all the time. I know I did it. So the way I always default to doing it, is the dumb math way. Frankly, I just take the number of students, divide the budget, instead of pulling out things like sped, because that just complicates the matter. I think it just confuses people.
Scott?
Hi folks, Scott Sawyer, Boston Hill. I may be part of the reason you're confused about that 19,000 versus other numbers. 19,000 is what the state does to compare districts. And this isn't the special ed thing, this is a really, really simple. How's the total number of students in the school? What's the total budget? Divide. It misses things. The 26 is more accurate in terms of K through 6. Preschool, because we have a large preschool, that lowers the number. Yeah, so that's where those numbers come from. This is the state's things they do for comparison. They give you these numbers. They say, here's all the students, and divide by it. And it really ends up with 19 something, I don't know the details. But the other number, the 26 number, is more accurately reflects what we spend for the K through 6, because the preschool program actually is self-funding. With the grants and so on, and I've got reports I can show to people that explain this, and I'll hand out this showing people where to get them if they want. But it's about $92,000 approximately, and Val tells me I'm being conservative, but it's actually less than that. You can't verify that because that includes money that she can't. She can't tell us what the benefits are for this program. It's illegal for her to, because it's such a small group, and that's according to FERPA and HIPAA law. She can't do that. But with an estimate of the benefits, the program costs about $92,000 to the town beyond what it takes in. But there's $200,000 that we are saving, because we would have to pay special ed costs for these preschoolers regardless. That's the law. We would have to spend, and $200,000 is an estimate. It's a pretty standard estimate. And I did some comparisons. The lowest I saw was 150 something, and the largest I saw was 480, I think, something like that. 200,000 is a reasonable guess. The other thing I wanted to say is, I didn't see the flyer you're talking about, but if this flyer just urged people to get out and vote, this is actually quite legal. That's in fact encouraged by the Secretary of State, and the Connecticut General Statute 9369D explains how that works. And if people want, one of my reports actually explains, points you to an explanation from a law firm. It's a lot easier to read in the statute. So, I think that's it.
Anyone else? Anyone else? For the third and final time. All right, well, I'll go.
Jeff McGuire, Lake Road. I have to speak directly to Scott's comments, and what really upsets me the most is that every time we look for information, we get FERPA and HIPAA and this and that, rather than get appropriate information provided to the Board of Finance so they can make a logical decision. Because everybody understands this is emotional. I get it. It's emotional. No one here is looking to hurt the children. The superintendent is not looking to hurt the children. The Board of Education isn't going to hurt the children. The teachers aren't going to hurt the children. What may have to happen is you might have to have larger class sizes. And Don, I don't know what you consider reasonable class sizes, but when you're talking between 12 to 15, is that reasonable? I'm not an educator. I don't know, but those are the decisions that have to be made. But every time that we sit there and try to get information, do you know how this board decided 6%? Do you know how they did it? They didn't get any information from the Board of Education or the superintendent. They sat there and took the current expenditures for health insurance and did some math. No cuts, no nothing. They just did some basic math and said, to live with what is currently being explained to the community that they need, that the superintendent needs and the Board of Education needs to educate our children, they came up with 6%. I understood the math. I know where the two individuals who, the newest members, who, God bless them, it's unbelievably difficult for what they have to do. But let me tell you, if we could just get real information and use logic, not emotion, logic, to make decisions, it will help this town immeasurably. And please understand where I'm coming from, all right? Last year, I saw this happening, and I didn't say anything, really. I said some stuff to the Board of Finance. I said, this is not working. This isn't going to work. Everybody go home and do the math. Take a $5 million budget and take 6% every year and compound it and determine where you're going to be in 5 years. It's not a good situation for us as a community. I'm just telling you. And I understand they have expenses. I do. The health insurance, terrible. They can't control it. The union contract, 3.25% to the teachers. The teachers deserve every dollar they get. What they don't, what is not done correctly, and I'll sit there and I'll look at the Board of Education and I'll look at the superintendent. Look at the contract. Don't look at what the teachers get paid. Look at the contract, compare it to Hebron, compare it to Marlboro, right? You'll sit there and see that the extension of the years before you get to top step in Andover is 10 years. In the other towns, it's 17 years. Because there was no understanding of what they did it for the benefit of the teachers, and my wife's a teacher, God bless them, they deserve more money. But you have to balance everything you do. You have to balance the needs of the children and the financial ability for the town to pay, right? It's a balancing act. And if you don't get any information, this group has an incredibly difficult job to do. And if you hide behind FERPA and you hide behind every other rule, and it's all just talk. It's talk. I'm just telling you, if you want to show the information to this group, they get it. So balance, and I'm begging you, please just look at where we're headed. And if you think that's okay, Doc, God bless you. But do you think where we're headed and the amount of money that's going to be required year after year after year is okay? And I would tell you, here, I'm going to ask a question. Dr. Greenhouse, how many children are going to be added this coming school year?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Give me an estimate. Reasonable.
In the current school year?
Keep coming up. Next school year, how many children are going to be added? Okay, I'll tell you what. The superintendent every year files a report with the RAM superintendent. I got that report this year because the superintendent from RAM did a meeting for the Board of Finance. And I looked at those numbers. And I'm telling you, we're not going to add that many children every year. That's information you all need. That's information this board needs to decide how much to spend. Because this year, you're looking at $273,000. increase in spending. And the other thing that you all have to do, focus on spending, not how we're gonna pay for it. Don't focus how we're gonna pay for it. It's not about paying for it. It's every year how much we're gonna spend. No, it's not. It's about what we spend. We can all figure out how to pay for things if we determine that the spending is the right amount. So, anyway, if you look at it, you need to be concerned.
We address the enrollment, Mr. Martin.
Can I have a minute? Rodney and Chair Moore. One thing I would just say to that is there is not a track record of going up 6%. There isn't. You go back and you look at the AES budgets going back 5 years, and it was -4, it was like flat, and it was at 1%, okay? We are, the last 2 years, dealing with these increases, and that's true. And you know, there's a part of, we talk about emotion, talk about psychology. There's a part of me that thinks, man, if they just come in at 2.5 every year, we wouldn't be just having this conversation, we'll be at the same table. So, you know, if we want to talk about emotion, let's talk about how people process 0, 0, 0, boom. That's part of the issue, I think, too. Also, in terms of expenditure, very important line to look at. Jeff's not wrong about that. I think there are 3 numbers that I look at that I think are important. Total expenditure, total will be raised by taxation, which is not your tax bill, and the mill rate. All 3 of those are important to me. It's something that I work on every year. Now, as to the number of students, we got about 190, I think. The snapshot's every October 1st, right? And it fluctuates throughout the year. You might have a kid leave town, you might have a kid coming to town, but we're about 190 K through 6 kids. Personally, I guesstimate we'll be in the same place next year. The last thing I'll leave you with before I shut up is I'll take my little Board of Finance hat off for a second and just talk as a parent. My youngest is now in 7th grade at Rand, which meant last year she was in 6th grade at AES. I asked her a question driving home from gymnastics a few months ago. When I first got word from Valerie that we were going to be looking at potentially a big increase request, and I was a little worried about it, for good reason. And I said, hey, Meg, do you remember 5th grade? Your class was about 24, 25 kids. You guys had some little bit of a hybrid thing that they cooked up at the school. There were some additional specials that they did. Christina Fraser, the math specialist, was brought in to do breakout sessions with some of the more advanced kids and that sort of thing. They had one class, but they had more resources thrown in. And how did that differ for you, you know, with 6th grade, where it was just a 6th grade teacher, and none of that extra stuff? She talked my ear off all the way home about how much 5th grade was great and 6th grade sucked. I was so bored in math, Dad. I had to sit there and listen to them explain something I got the first time 3 times because there was no breakout for the more advanced kids, that sort of stuff. I didn't expect that, actually. All right, so when we talk about when you remove resources, you know, oh, it doesn't have an impact. Well, it probably will have an impact. Whether you decide that you want to fund a certain level, that's up to you. But I can tell you from firsthand experience from my own kid that there was a difference between those 2 grade years. That really mattered. This year we rolled in with a 6th grade class of 29. I wonder how their experience went. Next year I think it's 25-ish for 6th grade. 25, something like that. And that was the issue is, do we bring in a second teacher or not? Well, decisions have been made, there's no way I can't imagine they can hire that teacher anymore. Well, that's gonna have an impact. You may think that's fine, that's okay. I mean, look, you split that class, you're looking at 12 class size. Okay, I get it, that's long. Unfortunately, that's Andover. If I could snap my fingers and say 18 per class, believe me, I'd do it. We don't get that. We have to make a decision between the 2, or do some sort of other thing, cook up extra staff to throw us some class. So anyway, that's my parental experience, that's the feedback I got from my own kid, and I'm gonna shut up. Thanks.
Do you guys all know what the average class size is at RAM in the middle school? Does anyone know?
8.
And me? 15. So 12 to 15 students is the average class size at RAM. That's the regional school that our kids go to when they leave Andover. My kid was in a class of 21. He's in 8th grade this year. right? The class of 29 that's graduating here this year is the largest class out of all 3 towns. Hebron has a cap to their class size of 22. They don't go over 22 students in a class. It's actually in their Board of Education policy. So when we talk about class size, and you guys talk about that we need to have a normal class size, and you're saying normal is 25 to 30, for our area, for our region that our kids go to school to, that they matriculate into, that is not the average, okay?
It's really hard when we talk about enrollment, for the accusation to be that, the numbers just aren't given. Because we all know, even if it's the population of a town, you never know. You never know how many people are gonna move in, gonna move out. When I got here in 2020, and thank you, Don, for again acknowledging that we were open then. I remember I met you first. The difficulty is I looked at the budgets from 2015 to 2020 when I got here in 2020, and every year they had been slashed. And I understood the population had decreased. They had gotten down pretty low from what they once were. So every year they were cut. And the elected officials said, well, less kids, less money. If the numbers go back up, we'll expect there to be a rise again. Well, the numbers went back up. And when they went back up, we were fighting year after year for the budget to go back up. In my first year, the numbers had gone from 175, all inclusive, pre-K through 6, to 190. And we got a 0% increase that first year. And everybody said, boy, you're lucky. You're lucky that they didn't cut you again. And ever since then, we've been fighting tooth and nail to get back the 6.5 staff members that were decreased from 2015 to 2020. And we don't make up the numbers. We don't decide who's going to move in with how many children when they move in. But I will also say, look at the plan of conservation and development, because the Board of Education is not giving you the information regarding enrollment. We don't know. We don't know how many babies are going to be born that aren't accounted for already. We're given those numbers from the town, and we hold spots for those kids, assuming they still live here. But then if they don't, we have to look at who moved in, who moved out. When the houses go for sale, we know who moved in if they come and enroll their children. So we can't control that enrollment. And as we said, this year, 6th grade rose to 29 at one point. We didn't anticipate that class was going to be 29. We knew it was going to be higher, though. So I urge you to look at the plan of conservation and development, because it was put together by the town, by the townsperson. And it says that yes, from 2015 to 2020, there was a drop, but then it went back up 26%. And on page, I believe, 94 or 95 of that new document, it says to the town, plan for a slow and steady increase, because they saw a 26%. And it doesn't matter if the argument is, well, it's preschool. It's only preschool, which it's not, but let's even pretend it is. They're going to be kindergartners and first graders and second graders. So even if somebody is convinced that there's only 15 kids or 18 kids in K-6, there are the rest of them moving to kindergarten next year and the following year. So I think that we do have to be cognizant of the fact, look at the POCD, please, the new one. It's the brand new Plan of Conservation Development. We may be moving slowly up in that direction, but we are. And we can't guarantee which new kids will move in and which kids will move out. But these are our numbers now. These are our needs now. And yes, you heard people say, our class sizes, we can't determine. I mean, if you have 28 kids, you only have 2 choices. A class of 28, or you split them and you have 14 and 14. And I know 14 is not ideal, but we only get 2 choices. That's it, that's all we get. A couple of years ago, last thing I'll say is, a couple of years ago, we had very sketchy numbers. The numbers were rising to the point of 26 and 27 and 28. So instead we had a combination class, 2 years in a row, so that we didn't have to come to the taxpayer and say, we're gonna add a class. And we weren't sure if those numbers would continue to rise. The last thing is, we can't forget ECS dollars. The town receives $2 million a year from the state to put toward educational expenses. And no one talks about that. And it's important because that's $2 million of our 4.5 grams that you do not pay in tax dollars. So you can't take that number, the 4.5 million, and divide it by the number of students and say, that's what I'm paying. That's not what you're paying. There's over $2 million in the town coffers that has to be used for education. Thank you.
Anyone besides down back in the room?
Go for it.
All right, Michelle Lorenz, 149 Lake Road. Okay. So I have a huge problem with belittling HIPAA and FERPA. When you go to the doctor, you sign your HIPAA forms. How would you like it if the town said, we're gonna collect all of your personal medical information, take it and review it to judge how much money you get? Okay? So when someone who makes a lot of money says that they want the HIPAA information of my child, please be prepared for a lawsuit, because I will not give you the medical information of my child, even if I have it. There's no reason for me to do that. So I would like you to reconsider who's leading us when they're asking for FERPA and HIPAA information of our children. And really, really think about who's in charge and what they're saying to you. That's really important to know, that he's saying, divulge your personal information to strangers so that they can judge on whether or not your children deserve the educational needs. That's wrong on so many levels. Thank you.
That's why those of us, that's why we live in Andover. It's because we can come to meetings like this and have a voice and vote how we spend our money and how our children go to school and how our roads are fixed. Because most towns in the state, we can't stand up here and tell my first selectman that I think that 22 students is a reasonable number. And I can tell my Board of Finance chairman that he is correct. If we did 2.5% increase, even when they didn't need the money, we wouldn't be sitting here today. And I would say to our superintendent that she was maybe a little misguided, thinking that an 11% increase in spending was going to pass. It's all about what can pass? How much do people want to spend on a particular year? And this school is a well-run school, always has been. I've lived here for 30 years. So I would just like to say that good to see everybody, and hopefully with a $13 million budget, we can afford more than one microphone at our next town meeting. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Lovich, Board of Finance. I just want to clarify something. At no time has anybody that I know asked for any kind of HIPAA-related information about children. The information that we have been waiting since January for from the school is aggregate, the aggregate cost of the health insurance benefits, taxes, and other ancillary fees for the preschool teachers. Because we know that we are responsible as a town to pay for the special education needs of birth through 5. And then birth through pre-K. So by law, we should know how much FTE is required to educate the preschool children that we have in our town.
And we don't know that. So we learned that the grant money and the tuition money covers salaries. And then we learned that other expenses are covered by the general fund. So all we asked was, what is the aggregate amount of those expenses? Maybe it's only $100,000. Maybe it's $300,000. I don't know. And you can shake your head all you want. That is what we asked for.
Protected information.
That is not protected. Aggregate information is not protected. And I will move forward with that request formally, because I'm tired of waiting.
So just so that you guys understand, aggregate data would be for the entire school. So there are 30, let me finish. Aggregate data for benefits would be for the entire school. So for benefits, for example, the town and the school are in the same consortium. There are 36 people at the school who are in that benefits line. In the town benefits line, there are 3 people that are in that benefits line. You don't see that separated out on either budget. If we were to give you aggregate data specifically only for preschool, it is such a small number of people that it does violate, what is it, FERPA and FIRMA? I'm gonna say the names wrong.
Salary information for state, or
Just talk on this because I cannot hear you.
Salary information for teachers, any of our workers in town is all public information. Yeah, it is. It's public information. It's public information, it's not protected.
Salary. You're asking about benefits.
I'm asking about all the expenses, which you can also get from the town. There's a whole spreadsheet that indicates line by line, person by person, and how much it all costs. And I'm not asking for a line by line. I'm asking for those 8 employees that we have requested for those 8 employees. How much is the medical benefits? How much are the taxes and other ancillary expenses? That's all. And that is not protected.
That's a problem. Other question? Right in the back. Yeah.
I'm Megan Malley, Pine Ridge Drive. So I'm not a lawyer, not an accountant. And this whole budget season, I've seen a lot of people present themselves as professions that they are not. We seem to have a legal question before us. We have legal line items. Has anyone asked for a legal opinion on this question and shared it with both sides so that we can just get past this in one direction or another?
So someone asked if we had a legal line item in the school budget, and we said that we do, in fact. And we did, in fact, ask our lawyers this question, and we're told it is too small of a number of people to share that information. It is illegal to do so. And we shared that with the Board of Finance.
So we go around town and we see the yes votes, we see the no votes, and I've seen a bunch of them. Board of Education, open your books, be more transparent. So, and maybe, did the Board of Ed not sit in the same meeting as the Board of Finance when they were going over these reductions, knowing they were gonna cut the budget? I mean, so, did the Board of Ed, they knew your guys were meeting, and you were gonna reduce their budget, and you had offered them a 7.5, at one point they rejected it. So was there a conversation between these 2 important boards in our town to try to come to some kind of resolution and get the information that you apparently needed? Was there information you didn't get?
Well, I think as you just heard, there's some substantial disagreement about who wants what and exactly whether or not they feel that they can turn it over. So, to be frank with you, that's, to me, a bit of an open question. The other thing is whether they sit with us. Well, a number of Board of Ed people typically typically will attend our meetings, but they're not joint meetings. Except for the one, we do try to have a tri-board meeting once a year, but it's way back in the fall. And that's actually where we first got word that we might be in trouble this year because of the healthcare cost increase. Val tipped us off in like, I want to say October. And at that point it was 15%, it went up to 21. We got really hammered. So, no, I mean, it's not a joint meeting. The Board of Finance is going to do what we did. They did, the principal, we got a letter from the principal about the impact of potential cuts. The Board of Ed's repeatedly told us about how much they really felt they needed the increase, but at the end of the day, we had to make the call as a result of the referendum results. So that's, I mean, no, we didn't sit down with them in a joint meeting and say, okay guys, if we cut you to 6, what's the impact? And the honest answer, given tonight, is they don't determine that yet.
No, definitely. Yeah, that's a little disconcerting. I mean, you knew you were going to see reductions, and you didn't make an effort to come and, I guess, negotiate would be the term I'm seeing. Now, the other thing is that, and I'll ask our superintendent, and I've heard this in the audience, I've heard it in town hall. The preschool seems to be a controversial subject. So maybe you can explain to us, are there people in Manchester or Andover that are using different addresses, or do we check to make sure that everyone's paying what they're supposed to pay, whether they be in Andover? Because Andover residents pay less, right? No? No. Maybe you can explain, because I don't want to say the wrong thing here. Thank you, dear.
So preschool in every town is that only program where you can take non-residents without going by the policy. It's separate in almost every town. In terms of the requirements for the state, special ed preschool is a requirement. Your town is responsible for your students from, the age that they are 3 all the way until they exit the system. In most cases, it's graduating from high school. In some cases, it's afterwards until the 26th.
So preschool is considered 3?
2.9 is when they can start, but 3, yes.
And 2 years of preschool?
3 for many kids because they changed the law and you have to be 5 years old as of September 1st to enter kindergarten. So for us, that also changed the number of preschoolers that we had. Now, in terms of what it costs, the tuition here is in fact $6,000 a year. I know a number of people have said, why can't you raise the tuition? Notice a couple of things. I mean, there's no line item in the budget for preschool. All 8 of those salaries are paid from the other revenue sources, which are grants and tuition. Now, if we did increase the tuition for...
Which you could do, right?
Sure, we could. That money would stay in preschool. You're not going to offset your other building expenses with the tuition. The tuition stays with the preschool program. And it has paid those 8 salaries. We've explained on multiple occasions that the state right now is in influx. They are changing the state program for early starts quality. And I've said on multiple occasions, they're kind of, unfortunately, sorry, state of Connecticut, they're building the plane, so to speak, as it flies. And they haven't quite decided what the trajectory is going to be moving forward for universal preschool. But they have determined that the preschool program will be universal by 2028, so the 27-28 school year. They've also told us in the numerous meetings that we've been in that in terms of funding moving forward, the grant slots that were given, we have 22 and 13 for our 2 different grants. They currently reimburse $6,000 for each student that fills one of those slots. Those slots are determined by a couple of factors. You can be a child that takes that slot if you're special education. You can be a child that takes that slot for that funding from the state grant. If you have a reduction in income in your house, there's a number of qualifications to be eligible to fill that slot. Doesn't mean you're free unless you're special education only, but we get that money. We had 4 classrooms this past year and the year before. Those programs were not fully full with the Andover residents. So let's say the room holds 18 kids and you have 15 kids in there. Why didn't you fill those other 3 slots with eligible kids that are not special education, that are going to pay full-time tuition to continue to offset the costs of those rooms? As long as it's appropriate for that room, it would be silly not to. And we've done that. We've done that to serve the public well, so that we could bring in that extra $6,000 for each of those seats. Now, moving forward, I know it's easy to say, just increase tuition and bring in more money there. We don't know what the rules are going to be on this plane that they're building as they fly. And I can tell you, because I sit on all of those meetings weekly, that the incentivization is, if you're going to 2.9ers, if you're going to build your program to take out-of-towners, if you're considered a workplace care program, meaning you service your employees, teachers, children. All of these things are on the table if you're full-time. If you can offer 6 to 6, which we can because the pool program is housed here. We don't control it, but we have an opportunity to say to families, working families, we can be a 6 to 6 program for you. All of these things are boxes that we're trying to check so that moving forward, we're going to be eligible for more money when it comes in the 27-28 year. I don't want us to be ineligible. I'm doing everything that I can as an expert in the field, with the help of the people from the state, to make sure that I set us up right. So it's disconcerting when our whole school is working really hard on this to make sure that we are set up to continue to get the funding to have people say, well, sabotage it, change the rules now. We can't change the rules right now. Because if we do, we risk the funding moving forward. And so, since we can pay those 8 salaries right now, we can wait another 12 months to say to the state, what do you think we should do so that we can continue to qualify for that money? I've already been told that potentially in November, that $6,000 will only go up to $6,450. Why? Because the way our program is designed, the fact that we're NIAC accredited, the fact that we are an early start program and a smart start program. So it's working. Not going to change that now because we need that money moving forward. So I don't know what else to say on that. We are the ones that are sitting on these meetings. And if that money comes in, if we increase tuition and say, we're going to move it to 7,000, are they going to say to us, well, I'm sorry, because you now are charging 7,000 and the state reimbursement 6,000, you don't qualify. Your tuition's too high. I don't know what the answer is going to be to that. You need to set us up for success. And since we can pay those 8 salaries now, we're going to do that this year. Those 8 salaries are not in the budget. And again, aggregate. Aggregate means the whole school. It doesn't mean one class. It's like saying, okay, you have 2 first grade. Can you tell me, which kids in first grade got a 2 on SBAC? That's only about 20 kids. I'm not going to say that I can give you that data. I'd be identifying them. So when we're talking about the insurance, I know you don't agree. We are talking about insurance. And in insurance, the aggregate number is what the chairperson said, Dr. Greenhouse. We have 36 people in AES that take insurance. That I can tell you. But if you want me to say which of the first grade teachers take insurance, which of the preschool teachers take insurance, that's not aggregate data anymore when you're talking about 2 or 4 staff members. So, and I know they said on the town side it was given. There are 3 people that take insurance on the town side. I don't see in the budget anywhere where it says which 3 people, because they're not going to give you that information. I'm not saying they should. So So it doesn't say which 3 people take insurance, you wouldn't ask.
Jeff McGuire, Lake Road. The question that Ms. Lorenz didn't understand me was I was sitting there saying that FERPA, and I did say HIPAA, are being used to deflect and not provide information to this board. I didn't ask to collect it. I don't really, I don't need the information.
Jeff, you said we're hiding behind it.
You are.
We are not. We're not legally.
You're the person in this room that has more information than this board has, or I have, sat there and said you can't get it because FERPA and what was the other one? Scott.
HIPAA.
I said it. What was the other one you said? No, FERPA, and there's 2 other. But listen, it's hiding, it's deflecting. And let me tell you, Scott Soyette sits on the RAM Board of Education. Scott should be focusing on the $34,000 a year that we spend on RAM to send our children there. That's the number that we spend to go to RAM. It's a monster number. And we all passed it. Why did this town pass that budget? Because it was only a small percentage, right? It was only a small percentage that that we had to pay. It's not the right thing to do. You gotta think about it. We cannot get the numbers. So listen, let me go back to what the superintendent is sitting there saying. In your 411 message, I think it was your second, I think you did 3, I think the finance person did 1, but the one that you did was you explained the children that are in preschool that need services, right? There are children that need services, correct? Okay. Did she mention any of those costs being included in what she said was covered? She didn't. So why can't we even consider? Because she sat there and said that they're trying to do something when they're flying the plane. Let me tell you, federally and state-wise, if you sit there and don't think that the Department of Education is in trouble, we're not living in the same country. Because right now in Washington, our current president is trying to take apart the Department of Education. A person from our own state is destroying the Department of Education. Do you think that we're going to get more money coming up forward? Do you think that the state, who's going to take $1 billion hit from monies not received, right, from the Federal Department of Education, is going to take a hit? Listen, I'm begging you all just to think about it, right? And I sit there with this group and I go, they need more information to make better decisions. That's the truth. Whether you believe me or not, it doesn't matter. But I will tell you that we got $82,000 out of $160 million of funding. That equates, the total town got $30 per residence. That's terrible. $30 per resident out of $170 million or whatever number of $1 million that state gave. So I'm just telling you, you gotta think about where we're going. So Mr. DeRozier thinks I've taken too much time, and I will yield the floor.
All right, everybody's complaining. Let me make a point here. Please. If one speaker comes up and talks for 5 minutes, evidently it's okay, and another speaker, you want me to cut him off. I'm trying to be fair to everyone. This meeting probably should have ended a half hour ago, but it didn't. So we're still here and we're still taking comments. Scott Sawyer, you have your hand up.
Okay, some quick comments. Asked if the Board of Ed was coming to the Board of Finance meetings. Most of the ones I've seen, there have been a number of Board of Ed meeting members there. And superintendent, almost all of them. Last one, it was, there were not as many there at the last one because there was a concert in the school at the same time. Most of those people were at the concert. What else? FERPA and HIPAA. If somebody wants it, the actual sections of federal law are Title 34, Section 99.3. And it specifically says, if groups this small, they can't give aggregate information even. And that's FERPA. HIPAA is Title 35, Section 164.504F.
Regarding the children, not the employees.
It's both. HIPAA is employees. Well, HIPAA is mostly employees.
Paper insurance, but I'm pretty sure in that law has to do with the children and not the public employees.
The HIPAA law, I mean, in this case, is dealing with employees, what benefits they take. The FERPA law is the students. There is some HIPAA stuff about the students as well. I read that a couple months ago. I don't remember all the details now, but those are the things that I can give them to you separately if you want. I had two more things. Look, one of them's quick. This, when we talk about lies, this came out, passed out lies to everybody, intentionally showing stuff that anybody who's CPA has to know is total nonsense. And a whole bunch of us came together to try to respond. I do research. I spend a lot of time looking up the laws, looking up the charter, reading everything I can. I've got a whole lot of reports out there. I'll pass all those things that people want with the links to all those documents. But I spend a lot of time on this. I'm not sleeping much because I'm doing this, because I think it's really important. I'm 3-4 hours a night right now, and I gotta get back to actual sleep. But I'm doing this because I think getting the truth out there is what's important. And we can make decisions based on that. And FERPA and HIPAA, yeah, that is right. FERPA and HIPAA it is straightforward. If you look it up, read the laws, they are there. And if this board wants, I'll do another board with those numbers, those sections, because they're real. And Dr. Brunel is a professional who knows her job. And I didn't ask her where these sections were, so I wanted to find them. I found them. I looked them up. I found the FERPA section. I found the HIPAA section. I read them, and they say exactly what Dr. Brunel has told us. She can't give us that aggregate information. And the fact that our first selectman wants it, the fact that members of the Board of Finance wants it doesn't matter. She's not allowed to do it. To say FERPA is just talk is, I'm sorry, that is not leadership. That is misleadership. So.
Anyone new, please.
Sorry.
Leah Maher, Sunset. I expect my taxes to go up. My gas has gone up, my insurance has gone up, just like everyone else's. I would expect, however, that in going up, it's something reasonable that we can justify, we can point to and say, hey, medical insurance is going up by 5% this year. I have X amount of people, we're going up by X amount of dollars. That makes sense to me. When I hear that there's not enough transparency, that just makes all the numbers not credible. And that's annoying. I feel like if there's something specific that isn't transparent or information that somebody needs to get this thing done, that they should say, hey, I'm missing insurance, I'm missing the electric bill, whatever it is, this is what I need in order to do my job, it's your job to provide it to me. I don't understand why this thing has gone on since January. That's crazy. None of us have jobs that we could just sit here and go, sit here and wait another 5 months. This is a huge bone of contention with whether you're able to provide it or not able to provide it, whatever. I'd like to be educated tonight about what the importance is of the number that you're looking for in order to understand why this is important and how it affects this budget, so that we can all make better decisions when we're watching vote no and vote signs go up in every yard.
You want me to explain that, why that number is important?
Yes, I would love to know that.
Are you done speaking, or?
Thank you to everyone and all the work you do. I know this sucks.
You always do redirect.
Here we go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason it's important is because we have been under the understanding that the preschool is self-funded. And I don't know if you know what that means. I mean, I think that means it's fully covered. And we're always under that understanding. And in January, we asked the Board of Education about that. And what it turned out to me was that the salaries were covered by the grants and by tuition. And I said, well, what about health insurance? What about the taxes and all the ancillary? And we got, yep, salaries are covered. Bottom line is, the answer was, because we're responsible to pay for special needs preschool children, they don't put that in the budget. They put the health care in the budget. And that could be perfectly fine. We asked, can we get an aggregate number of what that is? I'll tell you, most schools in their budget will show FTE, and how much FTE is reflected for a preschool teacher for special ed. It could be 1.2, 1.5, it could be 2, depending on the size of the school. We don't get that. So my ask was, can we just get the aggregate dollars of the health insurance for those 8 employees, the health insurance cost, no names, and other ancillary fees, like how much are we paying? Because if we needed to pay for 2 full-time teachers for special needs children at $160,000 or $120,000 or whatever it is, then we have to do it. But if we're paying more and we don't know it, then what does self-funded mean? That's the reason we want to know. And FERPA has to do with the families. It doesn't have to do with employees of public schools or municipalities. And that's why it's important. Because I want to know what we're paying in the general fund for our supposed self-funded preschool. Because we are not free.
Like $60,000, and that's all you want. It's just one number.
So, like, it could be, there's 8 employees. Maybe none of them take healthcare. Maybe half of them. So, yeah, pensions, healthcare. Yeah, it's not a difficult question. And it's also not confidential. So that's why. Thanks for the question.
Caitlin Zimmerich, Windrush Lane. I'm a preschool parent, and I pay my tuition gladly for a wonderful program. I'm also a public school teacher, not in Andover, in another town. There was a lot of talk about worrying about where the budget is going, but I think we also have to consider where we're coming from. I was trying to quickly look up on my phone what the previous teacher's contract was. Did the teachers not get a step increase in the previous contract? That's what I thought. So it looked like for those 3 years, which was pretty standard post-COVID, like 2020, 2021, 2022, that teachers took pay freezes. And that wasn't just Andover, that happened in many districts. So if you look at the current contract, yes, they are getting a step increase every year for these 3 years, but it's because they did not get a step increase for the previous 3 years. So you have to kind of consider where that's coming from. When you're saying, we only have the 10 steps to get to the top, it doesn't take just 10 years to get to the top. I've been teaching for 12 years, and I think in my district I'm on step 6, so I'm about halfway for the number of years of experience that I have. So just for people to understand kind of how that works in education, you don't increase a step every year of experience. That's not how that works. Also, the reason you see the budget increases over the last 2 years is because of the loss of funds from during COVID time. We had a lot of grants and a lot of money that was coming from the state during those years, and now that money is disappearing. So schools are trying to make up the difference. So I just wanted to advocate from someone that's not an employee of the school district, but I've worked in 2 other districts, and I've seen where this is coming from, and why those increases are happening. And it's not just happening here, it's happening everywhere. But before we jump on, okay, they're getting a pay increase every year and all of these things are changing, I think we also have to consider where it's coming from when they weren't getting those increases. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Joanne Hebert, Bear Swamp Road. I've been to all these meetings, I've been on the Board of Finance. I do think it's important that the Board of Finance has all the information to consider when they're making all these important choices and decisions and where to set rates. The only thing I can suggest from listening to the audiences and the people asking for information, I made the comment at a meeting, we don't want to know a teacher's name, a teacher's status, what they're doing, how much insurance they have. I made a point of, could they, I'm no longer with them, I'm kind of participating by going to meetings this year and breaking away, but could they have a list of just teacher 1, teacher 2, teacher 3, just say salary so that they can look at the biggest item on the budget of over $2 million to just make sure that it adds up. Not asking for anyone's name, just a total. The town does provide that information. They do have spreadsheets that they look at, so they can verify salaries and insurance. Again, not the personal information. One other thing I had, I do work in a school system myself too. Teachers are the hardest working people you're ever gonna see. So no one is taking that away. So we support them. I would never want to advocate for class sizes over 25 ever. I think Andover's been blessed, to have such small classes, and everybody that lives here is so lucky. My children benefited on the back end, went to RAM and everything, did well. But again, what about looking at the total number of teachers and deciding what grade needs what support different years? So that's just an idea. I think we need to be transparent with getting totals, not names. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I think we've gone around the room. I said, Marcy, I've not spoken to you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Oh, I wanted to say something.
Seconded by Don Denley. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.